Usually the first thing people look at in a new coaster is the stats. How tall is the ride? How fast is it? Will it deliver a duration long enough to leave me satisfied? Or how many times does it flip upside down? These are important factors, but what really makes a coaster elite is its layout. While there are some exceptions, if a coaster doesn't have a good layout, it's usually not really a good coaster. On the other hand, if a coaster's layout is amazing, it will likely be considered among the best in the world. Today, I'll rank my 15 favorite layouts, but first, let me list a few honorable mentions. Roll the tape. Number 15. Lech Coaster at Legendia in Poland. This was really the first coaster where New Vekoma showed how good they could be. Yeah, Formula opened a year before, but Lech Coaster really proved to the coaster world what New Vekoma could do. Standing at 131 feet tall and featuring less than 3,000 feet of track, this awesome coaster packs in a top-tier first drop and many airtime moments and inversions throughout. The ride starts with a dip and turn into the lift hill. The first drop doesn't just drop the train at a very steep angle, it also twists 90 degrees to the right on the way down, looking to give laterals as well as ejector airtime. This leads into a reverse sidewinder. This is an inversion that looks like a dive loop, but with shaping that more resembles a corkscrew. This leads into a snappy twisted airtime hill. This airtime hill provides a moment of laterals and ejector airtime before turning to the left. This leads into a large ejector airtime hill, but the end of the hill does not go all the way to the ground. It bottoms out fairly high in the air before flipping upside down and through the station for a very unique station fly-through. This leads into a steep overbank turn that flips the train around and into a twisted airtime hill before a corkscrew. Lech Coaster ends with a couple of twisted airtime hills and turns before hopping up into the final brakes. Lech Coaster is an extremely well-rounded roller coaster, packing in a very complete experience. Number 14. Abyssus at Energylandia. This is another modern Vekoma coaster model, this one featuring many similar elements to Lech Coaster, it just has more of them and it has launches. It is an extended version of the normal Vekoma Shockwave model, this one packing in 2 launches instead of 1. The ride starts with a slower launch, boosting the train into a collection of small airtime hills and turns. This leads into an airtime hill and a rise into the second launch, which boosts the train into a large turnaround. The train turns around and rises into a steep drop before a vertical loop. The train turns to the left and flies through a snappy twisted airtime hill, very reminiscent of the first one on Lech Coaster. This leads into a batwing inversion that has a valley inside of a trench. The train goes into another snappy twisted airtime hill before a strong ejector airtime hill. This leads into another turn, this time leading into a corkscrew before a wave turn-like hill. Another twisted airtime hill and turn lead the train into the final brakes. Abyssus delivers a pretty similar experience to Lech Coaster, but Abyssus features a bit of a longer ride with the multiple launches. Number 13. Python and Bamboo Forest at Nanchang Sunakland is a member of one of the world's best coaster duos, along with Coaster Through the Clouds and Intamin Hyper. While the other coaster focuses on speed and floater airtime, this GCI wooden coaster makes its way up and down a hill with a large quantity of airtime and lateral forces. The ride starts with a nice pre-lift section with a couple of hills before the massive lift hill. This leads into the ride's first drop, consisting of a double twisting drop before a massive double down, delivering sustained airtime and laterals to the entire train. This leads into a massive turnaround with a big drop before a double up, which brings the train back up to the top of the hilly terrain. The rest of the ride finishes the double out and back layout with tons of airtime hills, drops, and fast turns, never letting up the pace one bit. Riders are thrown around as the train hauls over a bunch of rapid-fire airtime hills, making its way down the train. Number 12. Untamed at Walibi Holland is an RMC iBox conversion of the old Vekoma wooden coaster Robin Hood. This features an amazing layout for a small RMC, featuring sustained airtime, quick pops of airtime, and inversions. The layout features a unique element right off the bat with an outward banked turn that leads into the lift hill. An 80-degree straight first drop is followed by a speed hill and a very unique double inversion, the 270-degree double inverting stall. This is followed by a double up where the second airtime hill banks sharply to the left. The train then heads into a camelback that gives strong and sustained ejector airtime. Another spectacular airtime moment follows this, being an outer banked airtime hill. I have heard that this element feels like a mix of Steel Vengeance's outer bank and Twisted Cyclone's wave turn. Up next is a turnaround consisting of a 0G roll and an outer banked airtime hill. Immediately after is a double up / double down element featuring a step up, bunny hill, and a step down. The ride's fourth inversion is an overbanked inversion, which is followed by an overbanked turn banking in the opposite direction. The ride's finale consists of 2 back-to-back airtime hills, an outer banked airtime hill, 1 more airtime hill, and a barrel roll. This barrel roll is rising so that when the roll ends, the track can drop back down before hopping up into the brakes. To conclude, this layout features spectacular pacing, tons of airtime, a few inversions, and some unique elements, all combined to make the best small RMC layout. Number 11. Wood Coaster at Night Valley. This is a GCI wooden coaster that uses the surrounding terrain to its advantage. The lift hill leads the train into an unconventional first drop, consisting of a 270-degree turnaround before a dip and turn to the right, which looks insane in the back row, and a banked turn to the left before the drop. The train picks up a ton of speed and hauls over an airtime hill before turning to the right and heading up into a turnaround. I'm not really sure what to say for the rest of this layout beyond this. It's just a ton of airtime hills over and over and over, but by no means in a repetitive manner. Just sit back and watch this awesome wood coaster. Number 10. Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England features the perfect layout for a classic hypercoaster, divided into 3 distinct sections. The first is an out and back, kicked off by a massive lift hill and a first drop that dives underground before heading over an ejector airtime hill. An overbanked turn and a small dip turn the train back towards the station and over 2 back-to-back ejector airtime hills, and the second is said to rival the hills on El Toro. That standout airtime moment concludes the out and back section, and the focus of the ride shifts to 3 back-to-back twisted hills, each one more powerful than last, and the positive forces on the turns separating the hills are said to be solid. The final twisted hill dives into a tunnel before hopping up and starting the final of 3 sections, a finale of small ejector airtime hills before a turn to the right and into the station. Number 9. Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg is an Intamin quadruple launch coaster that features a pretty short track length. It's not really that short of a track length, but for a coaster of this scale, it's on the lower end. But because of the multi-pass launch, this ride achieves a prime ride time of over a minute. Pantheon's layout starts with a couple of small S-bends before the first main launch. This launch boosts the train into a 0G winder before a low-to-the-ground turnaround and a couple of off-axis hills banking in opposite directions. The train passes through the switch track and connects with the second launch, heading through an airtime hill while being boosted forward. The train doesn't make it up the top hat and falls backwards. The launch system boosts the train backwards over the airtime hill and into the backward spike. The train falls back down and is boosted over the airtime hill for a third time, and now makes it over the top hat. Riders plunge at a 95-degree angle down the drop and into an intense turn right next to the water. This leads into a massive outer banked airtime hill, giving riders extremely sustained airtime. The train turns to the right and heads into a very long 0G stall, suspending riders upside down for a few seconds. The train heads over a couple of back-to-back turns before an outside banked wave turn before the final brakes. This layout packs in launches, steep drops, inversions, airtime, and positive G-forces, all while maintaining a blistering pace. Number 8. VelociCoaster. Okay, when I first saw this layout for the ride, I was like, yeah, it looks decent, but there's no way it'll beat Pantheon, Gwazi, or Kondaa. I kind of maintained that mindset until the opening of the ride, when I was like, okay, people are really loving this thing, so maybe I should give it another chance. So I listened to some reviews, watched some off-ride videos and POVs, and my anticipation for this ride skyrocketed. And when the official POV was released, my opinion of the ride went even higher. This thing was absolutely hauling, not to even mention the scenery and theming. So, this layout starts with that first launch leading into an Immelman and a dive loop, both of which look like they give airtime, and people who have ridden this coaster say it gives airtime. The rest of this first half consists of a bunch of airtime hills and turns. Most of the hills are twisted, and a couple of them bank outwards. The entire time you're just weaving around this amazing scenery and rockwork with tons and tons of head choppers. Then, you hit the second launch, which boosts you into a top hat, giving an awesome view before plunging back down. This is followed by a 0G stall, which looks like it gives some nice laterals in the entrance and exit. The train heads into an intense wave turn before a super snappy outer banked airtime hill, giving laterals and ejector airtime. An overbanked turn leads the train into a small speed hill before an awesome looking heartline roll right over the lake. The ride concludes with a snappy twisted airtime hill and a hop into the brakes. This layout is just non-stop intensity the entire time, with the airtime hills and turns in the first half, along with those insane near misses, and the incredible pacing of the second half. This awesome layout is also complemented with top-notch theming, making VelociCoaster a one-of-a-kind experience. Number 7. The Voyage at Holiday World. This is a massive Gravity Group wooden coaster, and it's divided into 3 distinct sections: the outward leg, twister or spaghetti bowl section, and the return section. The outward leg starts with a massive first drop before 2 back-to-back floater airtime hills, giving sustained airtime to the entire train. This is followed by a low-to-the-ground airtime hill that turns to the right, also giving lateral force in addition to negative force. One last camelback hill ends the outward leg, and the ride is now focused on speed, with many low-to-the-ground airtime hills and highly banked turns. The train flies over many small airtime hills before hopping up onto the mid-course brake run, which is located on ground level. But the track is at the top of a hill, so it then uses a triple down to go down the hill, gaining back a ton of momentum to complete the course. The final section of this ride consists of more small airtime hills and turns, these ones weaving around the structure of the hills at the beginning of the ride before making it back to the station area. Once the train makes it back to the starting area, it heads around a few more twisted hills and turns before hitting the final brakes. Number 6. Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point is an RMC hybrid coaster that was converted from the former Mean Streak wooden coaster. This layout starts with a pre-lift section consisting of a 180-degree turn and a couple of bunny hills before the 205-foot lift hill. The train then descends down the 200-foot drop and over a quick speed hill and a massive top hat that gives over 4 seconds of sustained airtime and laterals. This is followed by an outer banked airtime hill that gives even more sustained airtime. A step up leads into a long 0G roll that turns the train to the right. It heads through a small banked turn before an intense 0G stall that whips to the left and goes upside down before whipping back to the right. The train passes over a step down, giving a pop of airtime before a great step up, this one giving one of the strongest airtime moments on the ride. The train drops off of the mid-course brake run, with an airtime moment rivaling the one before it, before a double up giving even more ejector airtime. The train hauls over a twisted airtime hill, leading the train under the lift structure. An overbank turn and a 0G roll lead the train out of the structure for 2 more ejector airtime hills and heading back under. The train performs a wave turn before leveling out and heading through a 0G roll, which gives a strong moment of lateral force at the end due to the unique banking on the exit of the element. Another overbank turn precedes the ride's finale, consisting of 6 back-to-back airtime hills that all feature different banking over the crests and some small turns and adjustments between each hill and the next. This never-ending layout provides almost 30 seconds of airtime and never gets repetitive, always coming up with a unique way to throw you out of your seat. Number 5. Lightning Rod at Dollywood is an RMC iBox coaster, that feels really weird to say, that was originally an RMC topper track wooden coaster, but some sections were retracked with iBox track before the 2021 season. This layout features a unique launched lift hill that rockets the train up a mountain. The train crests the top of the hill and descends down a small dip before the actual first drop, this one dropping 165 feet at a 73-degree angle. The train heads up into a massive wave turn, giving riders a long moment of sideways airtime. Up next is an outer banked wave turn, throwing riders outwards at 90 degrees before whipping back to the right. The train flies over an outer banked airtime hill, giving riders even more strong and sustained airtime. The train heads into a step up and then turns to the right. An airtime hill follows this one marking the start of the infamous quadruple down or quad down. The train hauls through 4 back-to-back airtime moments as the train picks up speed going down the hill. The train flies over a speed hill and heads into a half-loop turnaround that levels out at the top, giving riders airtime as they fall back down and into the brakes. This layout packs in airtime, and more airtime while maintaining an insane pace, and these airtime moments are all different from each other, taken at different speeds and angles. The usage of terrain is also spectacular, making it feel like the ride never loses any speed. Number 4. Maverick at Cedar Point. I made a separate video discussing this layout, so make sure to check that one out after this one. Maverick's layout provides some of everything: airtime, positives, laterals, inversions, launches, and it has an amazing feeling of speed. This layout features a launched lift hill that leads the train into a super intense 95-degree drop. The drop turns the train to the right and into back-to-back snap turns, reminiscent of similar elements on Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. The train heads up into a sharp airtime hill before turning to the right and heading into a unique twisted horseshoe roll, which isn't really that unique. The train turns to the right and hops up into the second launch, which boosts the train out of the tunnel and over a trimmed hill. The hill turns the train to the right and over a scenic, drawn-out turn right over the water, with water cannons going off as the train passes by. A twisted hop leads into the first of 2 Stangle dives. This one snaps to the right, giving some insane laterals before doing the same thing again, this time to the left. A more drawn-out airtime hill leads the train up and into the brakes. This layout packs in pretty much everything and leaves you satisfied on the brake run. Number 3. Tutatis at Park Asterix is an Intamin Blitz coaster that will open in 2023. This ride doesn't feature a ton of track, but like Pantheon, the multi-pass launch really elevates the ride time. This layout starts with a dip into an LSM launch, which leads the train into a left turn, bringing the train to a higher elevation and into a cutback. The train turns around and heads over 2 back-to-back off-axis airtime hills, very reminiscent of Pantheon. It hops up and turns to the right, connecting with the second launch. The train is boosted forwards and up the top hat before falling back down backwards and is boosted backwards into the spike. The train traverses the launch track one last time and finally makes it over the top hat. A trim brake will hold the train over the drop before riders plunge down at a 101-degree angle. The train whips to the left and to the right and up into a long 0G stall. The train turns to the left and passes over a banked airtime hill before a large ejector airtime hill. This is followed by a snappy twisted hill and a wall stall, giving sideways floater airtime. The train turns left and heads through a barrel roll, an overbanked turn, and a double up into the brakes. The ride delivers a large quantity of airtime moments, 3 inversions, and amazing pacing and intensity throughout. Number 2 is DC Rivals Hypercoaster at Warner Bros. Movie World. This incredible mock hypercoaster features a backwards-facing car in the back of the train, which I'm sure provides one of the best coaster experiences in the world. The layout starts with a massive 200-foot lift hill before a snappy twisted drop at an almost vertical angle, providing ejector airtime and laterals. The train heads up into a massive ejector airtime hill that turns to the left at the end. It then heads into what is probably the most iconic element on the ride, the non-inverting loop. Instead of completing the normal 360-degree loop found on hundreds of coasters worldwide, it makes a rapid twist at the top, banking upwards just in time to not be considered an inversion. This element is said to deliver some of the strongest airtime and lateral force on any coaster, and it just has lap bar restraints. This is followed by a stangle dive that banks sharply to the right before leveling out. The train heads through the turnaround, which is this snappy element that resembles a dive loop, except the angle is not steep enough to be an inversion. Riders speed through a couple of twists and turns, an intense twisted airtime hill, and a helix before the ride's finale. A couple of twisted hills lead into a set of rapid-fire airtime hills, leading the train all the way back to the final brakes. This layout packs in everything you could ever want in a traditional hypercoaster, with strong airtime, laterals, and some unique elements, accompanied by great pacing and flow throughout the entire ride. My favorite coaster layout of all time is Kondaa at Walibi, Belgium. This coaster features an airtime focused layout, but it also has some unique elements in there as well. This layout starts with a steep lift hill and a twisting first drop, similar to DC Rivals, but this drop banks farther than it needs to, so the banking needs to snap back at the end of the drop. This is followed by a steep ejector airtime hill pulling negative 1.3 Gs. Another spectacular airtime moment follows this one being an outer banked airtime hill, again delivering an extremely sustained moment of strong ejector airtime. Up next is the world's first non-inverting Cobra roll, featuring two twisting moments that replace the inversions on the regular version of this element. This leads into the middle section of the ride, which consists of a low-to-the-ground speed hill before a turnaround and a wall stall, which is similar to a wave turn, giving sideways floater airtime. The train whips back to the left through an overbanked turn and into another speed hill, again giving ejector airtime. This is followed by a trick track double down, giving 2 pops of flowjector airtime while banking side to side. Yet another ejector airtime hill follows this, leading into a small S-curve and a stangle dive before the ride's finale. This consists of a sharp twisted hill and 2 back-to-back bunny hills before an off-axis hop into the brakes. This ride provides an extreme quantity of airtime, a large percentage of it being strong ejector. Every element on this ride packs a punch and delivers a different airtime sensation, whether it be a large moment of sustained ejector airtime, a sustained ejector speed hill, sideways sustained ejector airtime, sideways sustained floater airtime, or quick pops of off-axis airtime, and the list goes on and on. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all next time. Bye.